chop all these siege tanks now. Those drones really desperately trying to run for their lives. There's Wednesday Night Starcraft.
vVv gaming.
Alright, so Terran versus Zerg, MLG Metalopolis, one of those maps where you are always going to be forced as a cross spawn, either by close air positions or by full cross spawns. You cannot have what I call ally spawns back when Metalopolis was a 2v2 map. So the Zerg player definitely taking advantage of that, being able to take his expansion knowing that there's a little bit of a walk, and now as it is full cross spawns, as Murder spawning at the 6 o'clock location, meanwhile Mystik spawning at the 12 o'clock location.
I'll be interested to see whether Murder places that initial supply depot to the northwest of his command center, just to try to scout for that Overlord like he did on Shakuris. Again, he didn't really follow through and scout correctly once he was able to spot that Overlord with his supply depot, but I'm not sure if that's just part of his standard TVZ play. Be interested to see. He won't really be able to make it pay off on this one because the Overlord will be in a different position, though if he sees a lack of Overlord, that may hint that it is cross position here, and Mystik has got to like this, as Zerg players want to be far from their opponent, far from that early aggression.
Yeah, so Murder opening up with that standard 10 supply depot here on Metalopolis. Meanwhile, pretty much nothing out of the ordinary coming in from Mystik. Mystik just queuing up those drones as quickly as possible, and should perhaps be going for either a hatchery or a spawning pool. As soon as he sees that there is no, his opponent has not spawned at the 3 o'clock location, he might try to go for a hatchery first, knowing the rather long walking distances.
Yeah, Murder sending out that SCV just to the northwest of his command center to see if he could spot that Overlord. So he's going to be pretty sure that Mystik is in that northern position unless he did something funky with his Overlord, but still sending out that SCV. He wants to see whether Mystik is getting down that quick hatchery, whether he's going for some sort of pool gas build. I imagine we'll be seeing a hatchery, though Mystik has not really tipped his hand, not saving up many minerals at this point. Could be going for a 15 or 16 hatch, and looks like he's going to be going for a 15 hatch, not creating another drone here as he does have one larva. And actually the hatchery already down, missed that one, and Murder going to be able to see that, so both players opening pretty standard for their positions here.
Yeah, so a spawning pool finally coming into play as well. Extractor should be coming in right behind as soon as that drone makes sure that there is not going to be double racks pressure. Normally, a lot of Zerg players, as soon as they do see double racks pressure, try not to get that gas too early. They want to get more drones for spying crawlers, save up as many minerals on those Zerglings, and then just try to use creep as the speed boost. But we are going to get double supply depots on the front door, which means we may get a bunker seal in just a moment. The Marine in a very nice position and may be able to take down that scouting drone, and it is in fact able to take that down. That drone was not on mineral pathing and unable to pass through that Marine.
Yeah, it looks like Murder might be saving up for an expansion here, and he does have the 2 supply depots, so he could bunker up if he detects some sort of early aggression from the Zerg player, and he's just on 1 gas, so I don't think the bunker is going to be to hide or be safe for any sort of tech opening. And it looks like Murder is going to open up with the 1 racks expansion. So scratch everything I said before. It looks like he's going to be opening up pretty similar to what he did before, and hey, it worked for him. xSix Zergs might play very similarly, so starting with basically the same strategy could work.
Yeah, he is getting that reactor up, double training up Marines, getting up another barracks, most likely for that tech lab, and then starting that stim pack and combat shield research. We'll see how that works out for him as some Zerglings are making their way across the map. It looks like 6 Zerglings going to try to poke their head in, and that may be pretty successful, especially as there's only 2 Marines at this time. 4 Marines now trying to make their way over as well, but as soon as those Marines are surrounded, that's going to be very, very bad news. 1 Zergling venturing off a little bit too far into there, but the Marines want to make sure that they do not get caught in open field, and now a bunker being placed down to ensure proper defense. The Zerglings were in fact able to spot the expansion, so that's good news for them.
Yeah, it looks like Mystik, instead of going for some sort of all-in bust here, is just going to be droning up as we see 5 or 6 drones coming out. It is 25 to 22, and it looks like he's going for a fast lair as well. So there's a few things you can do when your opponent is going for a fast expansion like this. You can immediately throw down a 3rd as a Zerg player. You can go for a bust, a Bangling Zergling play here, and as long as your opponent doesn't have siege tanks out, that can be successful. Or you can try to tech up off 2 bases, and it looks like Mystik going to be going for that tech route, getting up his 2nd gas and 3rd at the moment. So we might see mutas, we might see an infestor play. I really feel like in the last game, if we saw infestors out earlier, would have been much better for Kenjin.
Yeah, in this game, though, we did see Mystik running around with a Zergling on the inside of Murder's base for quite some time, and he was able to scout out a lot of barracks productions. He knows that there's going to be a lot of Marines and Marauders, and with that layer completed, I'm hoping that he goes for an infestation pit, as infestors would be the perfect counter at this point, as opposed to just trying to go for mass mutalisks.
Yeah, it looks like, really like to see an Overlord to the northwest of Murder's base at this point, so we could get a Sacrificial Overlord, a little more information. He is getting down both a Spire and a Baneling Nest, and we do see Murder pushing out. I imagine he's going to want to wait until Stimpack and maybe even Combat Shield finish. Timing-wise, they will both finish in about 90 to 100 game seconds, so we may have some sort of timing push here with the Marines. By that point, it looks like Mystik will have the Spire finished, as well as possibly some Banelings out.
Yeah, some Zerglings once again just poking around, putting a little bit of pressure on Murder, but the Marines are going to clean them up with little to no issue whatsoever. As what was that?
It looks like a little bit of harassment done there. Thought I lost you for a moment, but the Zergling's not doing too much damage, taking down maybe a worker or two.
Yeah, some supply depots now being built in place to make sure that the Zerglings are not able to do any run-by whatsoever, as this mass Marine army once again making the push out and able to get a lot of damage onto those Zerglings. It doesn't look like we're going to have any upgrades on those Marines besides the Stimpack and the Combat Shields, just 0-0 Marines, and I don't see any Spine Crawlers, but with Banelings now in production, that may be just enough.
Yeah, Central Fugal Hook's on the way as well, but it's not going to finish in time for this attack. The Combat Shields and the Stimpack finishing at the moment, and Murder going to be sweeping in here, checking for a third, picking off a free Overlord here. Not going to quite supply block Mystik, but almost, and Mystik coming out with some Mutas and some Banelings, going to try to get huge shots on those Marines. Nice creep spread as well.
Yeah, so the Marines now coming in. This is a nice timing push with Stim. Zerglings now trying to come in as well. Banelings don't have that movement speed upgrade, and that is definitely going to hurt them. A quick scout sweep revealing no creep tumors, as that was all Overlord generated. And nice Marine spread there, making sure that the Marines are able to get some damage there. And we still have 4, 5, 6 Marines left, and those Marines with nothing to counter against them are just going to be able to get a lot of damage into here. Drones finally coming off the mineral line to finish them off, but the damage has been dealt.
Yeah, now a ton of Zerglings coming out from Mystik, so he might expect that another attack coming for Murder, but at this point Murder, just like in the last game, trying to expand off any successful attack. He's getting a command center and pushing out another group of Marines. I imagine at this point, now that he's seen the Banelings and the Mutas, won't be too successful with these Marines, but they're still pushing across the field, taking the Xel'Naga Tower here, and they're going to just make sure that the Zerg player is honest and creating units instead of drones. We see Mystik getting up his third. I like the timing on that. After you absorb an attack like that, you almost have to take a risk and take that third, and by the 11-minute mark, especially on a large macro map like this, the Zerg players want to be on that third.
Yeah, but it's going to quickly be canceled, as the Marines going to quickly come in, stim up, and be able to get a lot of damage. The Marines are already trying to split up there. The Zerglings and the Banelings now trying to come in as well, and it looks like the Marines are just doing a very decent spread there. Mutalist now trying to come in, and this attack force will be countered, but it was able to delay that hatchery over here on that high ground expansion location.
Yeah, and Murder finishing up his own third command center, so he's going to be able to land that. He might even go for the gold. He's got both, or he's got not, well, actually it looks like he's got just one of the towers at the moment, so perhaps, yeah, he will be going for the gold, so being a little bit risky, but at this point he feels like he has a lead. He's got a decent counter to the Mutas out for Mystik, as Mystik coming in perhaps for some sort of Muta harass.
Yeah, there are 2 missile turrets in play against, I believe, these 7 Mutalisks. The 7 Mutalisks now wandering around does see that there is an expansion now trying to be placed down, multiple missile turrets, and no Marines nearby in time. So those are going to be free SCV kills already, as the Mutalisks going after unit, upgrading to a planetary fortress to make sure that the Zerglings are not going to be able to do all that much, as the Zerglings and Banelings just hiding off on that low ground there. A siege tank should siege up and be able to get some damage onto those Banelings and Zerglings, as now the Zerglings are going after into the main base, catching a couple of units out of position, and there's nothing in the bunkers, and that's going to be an issue, as the Zerglings finally coming in. No, not going in at all. There's only SCVs in the bunker, but somehow the Zerglings didn't realize that they were not getting shot, and decided to back off.
Yeah, there was two banelings there that could have got a huge hit on those SCVs as they were pulled, but he was not able to get that off, and now Mystik's third is actually going to be behind his Terran opponent. So Murder at the moment has got a 3-2, now 3-3 advantage base-wise, and he's got a bunch of mules working on these rich minerals as we see another attack coming in from Mystik.
Yeah, another attack coming in from Mystik, and for some reason the SCV is still hiding out on the inside of that bunker. Not much is going to happen here as the Zergling's getting in a lot of damage. Missile turret finally coming online and able to just shoo away some of those Mutalisks. The Mutalisks attacking the statue for some reason for a moment as the Marines were able to pick them off, and I believe that little bit of a misclick is going to cause a lot of death for those Mutalisks as the Mutalisks still wander around, almost able to run up the ramp there. Siege tank on the high ground, going again to get destroyed by those Mutalisks, and now once again just trying to play it safe.
This is basically what Mystik has to do. He's at a disadvantage, he's got to be aggressive, and he was able to take down a ton of units there from Murder. Murder down to 78 supply to 108 from Mystik. So Mystik's got the advantage at the moment. It is 51 Harvesters to 45, but Murder does have that gold, so he's going to be ahead income-wise, or at least even with his opponent. And Mystik, once again, he's got a bunch of Zerglings here, and it looks like he'll be pushing in for another attack.
Yeah, the question is going to be whether or not he can keep up with upgrades. Marines are already 1-0, while the Zerglings are currently getting their 0 or the 1-0 upgrades, and the armor upgrades will be coming online as well. Marines now trying to fight back once more. There are a lot of Marines in the backfield with the missile turret able to deter many of those Mutalisks and those Banelings as well.
Yeah, just two tanks at the moment, as one is at the gold and one is by the natural. He really needs those tanks to take on any Banelings, as we do see a number of them morphing in here for Mystik, and he's reinforcing with more and more Lings. We see more on the way, along with some Mutas as well, and he's actually getting up a fourth at the western position.
Yeah, also the Mutalisks getting the level 2 weapons upgrade, hoping to just get as much damage as possible. It looks as though the Zerglings and the Banelings just trying to attack the natural expansion and getting get some damage onto some of those Marines there. The Mutalisks simply pop and the Mutalisks back off once more.
Yeah, so again, Mystik being very aggressive, but at this point Murder has caught up supply-wise, 115 to 114. But the fourth and the infestation pit about to finish for Mystik could even things up. Once you get out those infestors, the large blocks of Marines go down very quickly, and combined with the Mutalisks, once the Marines are down, not much can take those on. We do see more Marines and more tanks coming out for Murder, so playing it very much the same as he did the last game.
Another interesting thing to note is we are getting the auto-tracking upgrades for those missile turrets, so it looks like Murder is starting to be, or is aware that there's a lot of Mutalisks in the air, wanting to give an additional +1 range on those missile turrets and on the planetary fortress. I know a lot of Zerg players mentally know how far a missile turret can shoot, so that additional +1 range causes a lot of confusion sometimes as the Mutalisks now trying to come back in, and that +1 range actually did affect it, and now taking down one free missile or one free Mutalisk there.
We had a drop on the western position, dropped on the 4th of Mystik, 2 full medevacs of Marines, but that was quickly cleaned up. They weren't able to focus down the hatchery. They took down a few drones, so a huge loss there for Murder, and now Mystik rockets ahead supply-wise, 158 to 132.
Yeah, this is really a back and forth game, even though there's not that many attacks going on or not that many large engagements. Both sides just trying to squeeze out an advantage at whenever possible, and it looks like, as you mentioned earlier, Murder is behind, but he is also sitting on about 2,000 resources, and he's really more supply locked than anything else, or production locked. All of his buildings are producing, but unable to do anything.
Yeah, and he's just relentless with his expanding as well, getting a 4th command center, so he'll soon be on 4 bases once he takes care of that Overlord in the basically the 4 o'clock position there. Now pushing across the field with a limited number of Marines, and now the Zergling's going to get a nice surround on the initial Marines there. A few Banelings, he looks like Mystik will be waiting for those. Now he's going to have to do that all-important micro with the Zerglings, the Banelings, and the Mutalisks, and it looks like Murder does not like the looks of that, going home with these few tanks and Marines.
Yeah, now that we're getting the pathogen glands and now the level 2 weapons upgrade almost completed, I think those Zerglings are going to be a little bit more difficult to deal with, as they're going to have 2-0 or 2-1 upgrades, excuse me. Those Banelings are going to be even more critical, as I believe they deal 43 damage when detonating, so it's almost enough to take down.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Murder. His macro is really slipping. 3,000 minerals, and I just sat on a barracks for 10-15 seconds and nothing was coming out of it. He wasn't even supply blocked. So he really needs to get up supply depots. He really needs to race to 200. Mystik is already there. As Murder trying to siege up here. Here come the Banelings and the Zerglings. He does have a stagger the Banelings and take down these Marines. The Marines stimming up, retreating back to the gold here, back to that planetary fortress. But Mystik just continuing to remax at 175. Anytime he loses units, just more and more on the way. 44 Lings on the way, along with a greater Spire.
Yeah, Murder is really slipping in his macro. Now sitting at almost 6,000 total resources. And that's not something you can allow, especially as a Terran player going against a very, very macro-heavy Zerg. The Mutalisks now simply sacrificing themselves for the greater cause, going to go after those buildings, and now this is going to be even more troublesome as the production buildings are going to get taken down. If Murder is unable to replenish his forces quickly enough, he's going to be stuck at 150 or 126 food quite some time. It looks like the Marines and the Marauders are making their way back over. Tech Labs are going to get sniped down, but really that's all that is.
Yeah, maybe that was a gift, so the reactor is going to allow him to spend those minerals, but he wasn't really using those production structures anyway, as Mystik basically gets 131.
Map control goes to Mystik. Murder finally able planetary fortress at the high ground expansion with a lot of missile turrets, so it's going to be a very difficult building to take down. I don't imagine we're going to get the Terran building armor, as that would complete the upgrades and make it almost impossible for Zerglings to take down, and especially with missile turrets nearby to take down Mutalisks.
And we do have Broodlords on the way for Mystik. He's already got a few of them, so once those come into play here, they're going to quickly take down the planetary fortress, the gold. The gold is completely mined out for Murder as well, so Murder basically operating off of, I'd say, maybe 2 bases. He's got a little bit of minerals in the main, a little bit in the natural, and the Zerg, as we see another drop coming into the 5th base of the Zerg, saving those drones as they are pulled off quickly, and now the Lings with 2-1 going to be able to clean this up. That medevac will go down to the large meter count as well. And now it looks like Murder pushing in here with a ton of Marines and might be going for some sort of last stand.
Yeah, so those Marines are already spread here. The Marines are not going up that ramp, though, as the Broodlings are now coming in. And now we need to see a lot more Viking take apart multiple siege tanks in just a moment. Zerglings coming in as well. The Broodlords have a little bit of an escort with those Corruptors and those Zerglings and Infestors nearby. I don't think much is going to happen with Murder's tanks here, as they are now in full retreat as well.
Oh, the tanks with huge friendly fire. Once the Broodlings went down, the tanks started shelling their own Marines. One tank there has 29 kills. Not really sure whether those are Mystics or Murders, as losing a ton of Marines there, and he needs those Marines to focus down these Broodlords. And now Mystik begins this slow push of his own, using these Broodlords to push through the bases of Murder. Murder again trying to macro up, but only 7 Marines at a time coming out. He's got a ton of racks, some of them not even working.
And are able to take down the expansion drones, or the drones were saved, or many of them were saved, and now are going to be able to mine away and do some long distance mining off of the starting location at the 9 o'clock location, as the Broodlords now coming in trying to take center minerals at all, but it looks...
Yeah, we saw it. And you're right, this gold expansion doesn't have any minerals, but it's a pretty important point. It's going to control the map on Metal Important, and Murder macro still slipping quite a bit. He's got Vikings finally coming out to try to take on these Broodlords, but still a very high muta count and a very high infestings.
Yeah, we also see that Mystik still sitting on about 6,000 as we are also getting the crackling upgrades on the center location has been cleared up, and those Broodlords are pretty much able to freely walk around. But another drop coming in over here, so Murder using a very, very small army able to clear up another expansion, and this is going to be a problem as Mystik, even though he does have a cache of minerals, cannot afford to be behind on bases, as he's only mining off of 1 base now.
Yeah, it looks like Murder's still mining off of the 4th base, and he's also got a little bit of minerals left at his natural, sacrificing a few bunkers to try to get cash in the bank and continue macroing. But I'm not sure he's going to be able to come back in this one. xSixMystik is just so far ahead, 180 to 119, and as you mentioned, he's got cash in the bank. I think the only reason he hasn't won this one so far is he's been low on larva. Checking his hatchery is still 0 larva, so he hasn't been able to macro as fast as he might have liked. But now it looks like he's going to be denying this expansion as an orbital tries to move over here. And we do see Zerglings trying to get us around on these Marines. Banelings coming in, quickly focused down by those siege tanks, and now the Infestors getting nice fungals off on those Marines and the Vikings. And now we see Corruptors focusing down the Vikings as well. So the Broodlords and the Infestors, we're going to have free reign here as Murder trying for some sort of last defensive stand to get up this expansion.
Yeah, it's not looking very good. So many Infestors, a lot of energy is split between them. Another fungal growth hitting them. For some reason, the Infestors sacrificing themselves, though. They should not be absorbing so much tank fire at all, and that was a pretty wasteful play by Mystik, but at this time, I think Mystik's got units to almost waste pretty freely.
Yeah, we see that so often with those Infestors as they move forward there. They just get away from the Zerg player, but he's still got 5 of them left, and he's got more and more Broodlords coming in, and he's going to be able to deny mining totally here from this expansion in just a moment.
Yeah, even those Broodlings are going to be able to absorb a lot of damage as the level 3 armor upgrades coming in as well. The Marines are slowly trying to push their way through. More Zerglings coming in as well, but those Broodlords now going to turn around and try to fire back. The Infestors can get off a couple more fungal growths as an orbital command being forced to lift off and not be able to mine any more minerals.
Yeah, and these tanks almost can't afford to be in siege mode as they're doing just so much damage to the Marines, and the Marines can't afford to go forward as we get the GG